B-boy. From the old to the new, still a B-boy. Too bold for the school, still a B-boy. East Coast to the West, B-boys worldwide. We supposed to be blessed, still a B-boy.
This week we're heading to Seattle to talk about an MC who put the Northwest on the map, from his early classic songs to his massive crossover hit and his underrated music that came after that hit. Top 10 Sir Mix-a-Lot songs. Joining me, as always, Raven Hunter's in the house, Diz Mega's back, and Ben Neumann is back as well. Let's talk about some Sir Mix-a-Lot. And I'm starting for the album that it all began with him, 1998 Swass. And I'm going with the song Hip Hop Soldier. This song always kind of reminded me of like LL's Bad or Rock the Bells. It was that same vibe. And just that late 80s hard hip hop street, hard lyrics, hard beat. You got the gunshots in the background. Just was always a personal favorite. And there's not a ton I can say about it. It just always stood out to me. It gave me that old school LL, Run DMC, just that type of gritty old school hip hop vibe. And hip hop soldier always gets me every time I hear it. So I slid it in at number 10. Raven, what is number 10 on your list?
So yeah, I started in '96 with the Return of the Bumpasaurus album. I actually started with the single Bumpasaurus. I love the beat to that song. It's hard. It's really '96 sounding. Even for Sir Mix-a-Lot, he never had that current sound. You know what I mean? Like in my opinion, but he tried to bring it with the Bumpasaurus album, and at the time, I thought it was great. People call it his worst album. Shit, I like it better than. Well, I don't know. Maybe it is his worst album, but either way, it's a good album. Yeah, Bumpasaurus.
No, people always shit on that record, and I always defended it. I defended it in '96, and I'll
Same.
still defend it. To me, I like it better than Chief Bootknocker. I might even
I
like it
said that's
better than Seminar. I don't
yeah,
know,
those were the
but
two that I just went through my mind, and I was just like,
yeah,
well, maybe not,
eh,
but probably definitely Chief Knocker. I like it a little bit more.
that album is always unfairly criticized for whatever reason. I know it was like the height of the East West, and he's like pictures in there throwing out the W, but that's what was going on at the time. But no, I like that record. There's a lot of great songs on that. Diz, what is number 10 on your list?
Number 10, man, I'm going all the way to 1988. I don't know how I got my hands on Swaz back in the day, but 88, I was like heavy into like Slick Rick, and I was a kid, man. I was 10. So whatever I could get my hands on, and somehow I got this tape, Swaz, and the first song I heard was Buttermilk Biscuits. That's not really Sir Mix-a-Lot, but it is. And that's my 10th favorite song. First one I heard from him, and I was like, what in the world is this, man? Man, I memorized this. I memorized the whole tape, whatever. But that one just hit me like you can imagine as a 10-year-old for the first time hearing Buttermilk Biscuits, and I don't even, I don't know what he means, whatever, a lot of stuff I don't know what he means, and I'm just like, I loved it though, man. I love the voice, and I was like, man, I remember listening to that over and over, Buttermilk Biscuits. So I could not keep that off my list. Number 10, Buttermilk Biscuits. It's just a fun track.
It is, and it was an honorable mention for that very reason. It always makes me smile. And you're right. As a kid, I was singing along too, and I didn't really know what the fuck he was talking about. I mean, I can kind of assume things the older I got, but it's like, what a weird way to start your debut album, right? And then he did the square dance rap with that same effect later on. But no, it was an honorable mention. It still makes me smile. Good pick. Ben, number 10.
10, I'm going with off Seminar. I'm going with Beepers.
Beepers.
Oh yeah.
I'm pretty sure it may have been Buttermilk Biscuits, but I for some reason I think this was the first song I've ever heard by Sir Mix-a-Lot, and it was on it wasn't a Rap Masters, but it was on one of those old school like Cool Rap or those old cassettes.
Gold Rap.
And to this day, I will randomly be walking around and I'll just go Beepers like for no reason. So it's got to go on the list.
Yeah, I believe that was the first single. It was one of the singles, and I think it was the first single. Yeah, those old compilations. I don't know if we've ever brought them up. I brought them up on my morning music, but like Cool Rap and like Gold Rap, would have a guy with a boombox. Man,
Yeah,
Priority
Found
X-Rated
so
Web.
many. Found
Priority did
so
a
many
bunch of
good
them.
artists on those
Oh my
tapes.
gosh, yeah.
So many.
I had so many of
Mhm.
those tapes because that was the way, if you wanted to hear 10 different artists, that was the way you had to do it, right? So
Yeah.
Yep.
I have so much nostalgia for those tapes. But we are not there. We are at number 9, and I'm going to the year 1993. It was a little compilation called Seattle the Dark Side. The song was just a Pimpin' in Me, which also appears on Chief Bootnaka. But I went with this version, even though I believe they're exactly the same. Just to talk about this compilation, this was a low key, really, really great compilation showcase in Seattle hip hop. And yes, the well wasn't deep, but besides Mix-a-Lot, you had Kid Sensation, who for a while was really gaining, ground like he might really make it to the next level. E-Dog, J Ski. I just always really, really loved Seattle the Dark Side. And it's kind of, I think, forgotten to hip hop history a little bit. But just the Pimp It in Me, it's good no matter what record you listen to it on. It's just a fun Sir Mix-a-Lot song doing what Mix did in the early mid 90s. So that was my number 9. Just a Pimp It in Me. Raven, what's your number 9?
Always really liked the album cover for that compilation too. It's simplistic. I like the font. I don't know. I just always it stood out to me when I saw that. Anyway, number 9. I'm glad it was brought up. Buttermilk Biscuits definitely was like the first song I heard from him, I think, and I was like 11, so it was hilarious to me. And still, the voice still makes me laugh. Like listening to it 20 minutes before I got on here, I was still chuckling at that shit. And my girl was like, "Who the fuck is that?" Like, just because of that, like that chipmunk shit. I don't know. I love that shit though. So it had to make my list. It was a little lower than I wanted, but there's a lot of songs I really like from Sir Mix-a-Lot.
I know it just makes you smile, and we need more music that just makes you smile, right?
Just fun music.
Right. Diz, number 9 on your list.
Chief Bootnaka. That's the
Title
one
track.
that the title track. I think it has a dope sample of that tomahawk chop. I mostly my favorite albums were always like Swaz and Mac Daddy, but I had to catch up on Chief Bootnaka and Bumpasaurus. I'm glad I did, man. Revisiting some of those old tracks, classics, man, that have just kind of stayed under the radar. This being one of them, Chief Bootnaka, Sir Mix-a-Lot, man, he has always had like this sense of humor, and it comes out here. It almost comes out in like all of his songs. He's got this wild sense of humor. It's very clever the way he writes, and you could tell he's always like on top of his game with his writing. Not to mention what he does behind the boards too. So, Chief Bootnaka is one of Sir Mix-a-Lot's many iconic songs, in my opinion. It's just, I mean, every song he does sounds different than everything on his other on the record. Like every song I hear on his records, none of them like blend and sound the same. They're always like unique. It's crazy. Chief Bootnaka, there's no denying how unique and different that one is. I love it. So that's my 9th.
But you brought up a good point, is Mix did a lot of his own production, which, he was on both sides of the mic doing it, and just amazing sample. And that was an honorable mention, but that whole album is just, even though I said I like Bumpasaurus more, it didn't mean that's not a good record. I do really like that record. It's like everything on Bootnaka is maybe a 7. Then other albums there might be a 10 and a 5, and it's more like that. So that's how things beat it. But no, that's a good title track. Ben, number 9 on your list.
I'm staying with Seminar, and I'm going My Hoopty.
Yeah.
I know that it was higher up at first, but I really love Chief and Mac for albums, so it ended up sliding down the list a little bit. But I mean, classic Mix-a-Lot, the shitty car story. I'm pretty sure we all had one hanging on by threads, so I can relate.
Yeah, most people can, and I definitely was one of them too. That song always makes me smile, and it will get brought up again. Just so many funny one-liners in that. And that was the other single off that record. I don't believe there was 3, but I know Hoopty and Beepers were the singles off that record. Number 8, I'm going to a place people probably think no one was going to go. 2003's Daddy's Home, right? A lot of people don't even know about this record. And the song is Y'all Don't Know, because I'm a sucker for reminiscing tracks. Mix takes us through his childhood, starting rap, his whole career, up to Baby Got Back, up to 2003. And yes, this is a very forgettable album, and it sounds really dated. It screams early 2000s, and not necessarily in a good way. But I love these type of tracks. I love hearing people's journeys like that. I was like, so what if it's on the weakest album? I love that song. Y'all don't know. Take a trip through his life. That was my number 8. Raven, what about you?
Man, I don't remember what the soundtrack was, but the song is called Ride, and I know it was also on Chief Bootnaka, but it was on the soundtrack too. It's just a really dope beat. For a beat from '94, it sounded a little, I don't know, ahead of its time for its time. You know what I mean? Like, there's always an artist that comes out with a track when you hear a beat, you're like, oh, that's the next shit. You know what I mean? And Ride had that feel to me. And that song still bumps. Just a dope fucking song.
Another thing he's great at, and those faster pace mix a lot songs like
Mhm.
that. There's so many of them, but they're all so good. And that's a great example. Not an honorable mention though. I thought it might be. I don't even know my own goddamn list. Diz number 8.
Number 8, man, I'm going with I'm Your New God off the Mac Daddy record.
So good.
He's taking the point of view of cocaine here. It's awesome. His writing, the storytelling is just phenomenally done. Iconic is one of my favorite descriptions when it comes to Sir Mix-a-Lot. Iconic track, the way he kind of popped in somebody sniffing throughout the whole beat was crazy, you know. And I love I guess it would be the strings in the back, man. It has like a dark theme to it. It's just a dark track. It's dope though. So one of my favorites, iconic. I'm Your New God, number 8.
When we ever always talk about audio movies, people who can paint the picture. That's a song. And you're right, that
Mhm.
like hitting the bass pipe built into the beat, that just genius. Such a good
Mhm.
damn song. Ben, number 8.
I'm going to Chief Bootnaka with Take My Stash. Because fuck you,
IRS.
IRS. That's why. Like, I like how he kind of broke down his situation, and there was the detail of it, and he was just, you could tell he was just pissed off, and it came through in his delivery, and I thought it was a dope ass song.
Yeah, I think he even like mentions the exact amount he had to pay
Yeah.
him. No matter how many hundred thousands, I don't remember. But no, I'm all for fuck the IRS. As long as they're not listening to this show.
Yeah, right. We just lost a
They
fan.
are.
Yeah. Damn. All right, number 7. And look at this. I'm going to Mac Daddy, and I'm going to I'm Your New God. This record is his best, in my opinion, and it has nothing to do with Baby Got Back, the reason so many people know it. But like you said, amazing song, the point of view from cocaine, crack, that inhaling and the beat, we kind of, talked about everything. Just genius song. On this record, he had a couple songs like that, and we never really got this exact mix slot on any other record. This super, we had Hard on Seminar and Swaz, but like I'm Your New God is just so dark. And he really never went that dark again. But I love him. I love that type of track. I'm Your New God. That was my number 7. Raven, what is your 7?
It is not that, but that song may be talked about again. No, I went to Swap Meet Louie of the Mac
Yeah.
Daddy. I love that beat. I love that little story. It always made me laugh, and I love his flow, and just you can tell he had fun with that song. And he had fun with a lot of his songs. He had a lot of fun music, but Swap Meet Louie was always one of those that we turned up a little bit more.
Yeah, that was an honorable mention. Same. It always makes me laugh. And anytime I see something made in Korea, I think of that song. Made in Korea. That, that still pops in my head every time. And that was actually a single. I remember having that CD single. I couldn't find it. Great song. I'm glad it got brought up. Number 7 for you, Diz.
Bucking My Horse. This is on the Bumpasaurus record. So he's talking about his 6'4", his ride like it's a horse, and it's got some Hispanic elements in there with the Latina there, and it should be almost like a West Coast anthem, he's really just representing the dub there, it's just it seems more West Coast because of the Mexican elements in it. I thought it was a real creative track, man. He's just having fun. It's a hella creative beat. His flow gets quicker on here, which is kind of cool. I think it's dope. It's one of my favorite tracks, though. Bucking My Horse.
Yeah, I got more bass in a little bit. Daddy Don't Quit. He does really flow on that. And he's so great with that fast flow. Underrated, you might even say, with his flow, because he rides some really fast beats on his records. 7, Ben.
I went to Mac Daddy with Swap Me Louie as well. I hated this song at first. And then I don't know if it was I don't know why, but I was like, God, this is fucking stupid. So I'd always fast forward it and then fast forward the cassette.
Right.
And then at some point in time, I was just like, this is the shit. I don't know what I was missing, but sometimes Swap Me Louie.
I didn't know if that was because you were selling bootleg Mix-a-Lot tapes with Mary Wong at the swap meet.
Yeah.
That why you hated it? Yeah.
On the back of Sloopy's.
Selling bootleg Mix-a-Lot tapes. All right, we are at 6, and I'm just hopping between albums, and I'm going to 96's Return of the Bumpasaurus. And I'm going with the first track, You Can Have Her. Such a great opening with that Chris Rock stand-up in the beginning is so great. And, he doesn't take himself too, serious, because this is a bit from Chris Rock, basically making fun of him and put him on the Glass song. But after Rock's little intro, then you just hear Mix's voice really low. This is to all my ex-girls or something like that. And then that beat comes in and it gets me every time. What a great way to start a record. This always gets me pumped. I never want to take the record out when I listen to it in order like this. And kind of like we said, Mix is so good in these type of songs, the faster up-tempo beats. He's rapping about girls. Yeah, my other note was just to defend this record, but I kind of did that already. So, yeah, You Can Have Her was my number 6. What is yours, Raven?
My number 6, I put on here, just because I had to. Baby Got Back from Mac Daddy. Just because of the significance of that song. Like we were talking about earlier, to this day, the minute that white girl's voice comes on, everybody knows what that song is. Down to the don't. Like, it just, at the time, it felt like that perfect radio single. And I was young as fuck, so I thought it was funny too. But to this day, I still see on YouTube like him doing that live and like older white women losing their minds twerking on stage and shit. Like, it's crazy.
In 2004, I interviewed Sir Mix-a-Lot over the phone for a website I was doing interviews for. And I was kind of like, I don't remember how I exactly asked it. It was 20 years ago. But I brought up Baby Got Back, and if it was kind of like bad for him, not money-wise, obviously, but because everyone looks at you as the Baby Got Back guy. And he said something like, my grandchildren's grandchildren will be eating off that song, so I don't regret a moment of it. So, I mean, he's right. He's the money he's made, and I believe I've read that he owns all his publishing. So
that's genius if he does.
Still getting fat checks. I mean, yeah, it was an honorable mention just because of his significance to this day. Kids who weren't alive then say a line from that song, they know what the hell it's from, right? Number 6 for you, Diz.
I'm going to Mac Daddy, the first track, One Time's Got No Case. This is a master of audio visual. I wrote. I mean, the cop in the beginning, is hilarious, calling him Leroy and all kinds of shit, and like what's about to happen, man. It's hilarious, and the whole song is just like this story, that how he's fighting the system and everything. I love it, man. The beat's dope. It's such a cool way to start off the record. It's the man that you love to hate. Damn, I love that track. One time I had to fit somewhere, and he's got some real tight tracks. It's at number 6 for me.
I'm glad it made it, because that would probably have been my number 11. I love that. And like you said, the intro, why can't I be Tommy or Filbert or something? He says.
Yeah, just get into some Muhammad, it's like.
No, that's a great, great song. I'm glad it made someone's list. Ben, you're number 6.
This might be a little premature, but for me, I'm going to Swass with Posse on Broadway.
Ooh.
It was a lot higher. I'm sure we're going to hear about that again, but that is just a classic hip hop song. I mean, the beat. I love that kind of beat. It's almost like it's 6 in the morning in a way.
Yep.
Just that that deep bass and that old school flow. I just love that kind of shit. It was higher. This one I struggled with where to put it, but there's just too much other stuff I like by him later that I had to it made it in the middle there, but you can't deny that song. So
You're right. That's classic. And at least it made your list. If it like didn't make your list at all, then I might judge a little bit. Sorry if I got to judge you other two. I don't know if it's on your list, but we are halfway through. We are to number 5. And for the first time, I'm going to 1989's Seminar. And I'm going with my hoopty. Because like you said, almost everyone can relate. My first car cost $250 and it was a 1978 station wagon. And at every stoplight, it would die. So you had to restart it at every stoplight. But it was my hoopty. It was a car. I didn't care, right? And just so many funny one-liners. He hits the brakes and the Skittles slide out from under his seat. He's got one hubcap. The other 3 were stolen. Just line after line after line. This one I wanted higher because it just always makes me feel good and reminisce, but it just kind of slid down. And although I thought Seminar as an album was a little hit or miss, this was always the standout for me on Seminar. My hoopty, I will never not like that song. So that was my number 5. Raven, what is yours?
Mine, I was super happy to hear you bring up Hip Hop Soldier from Swass because I love that song. That's my number 5. Didn't know if anybody else would get that song on their list, but I was happy to hear you had it. And you pretty much covered every reason why I love that song. It's just a great fucking song.
It just reminds me of like LL Bad or Rock
Yeah,
the
just it's
Bells
got that
or
same like hard feel to it.
right, just straight hip hop. Number 5 for you, Diz.
Mine is Man You Love to Hate. We were talking about it off
Yeah.
air. It's fucking dope. It's almost like a remix or a upgraded version of Posse on Broadway. He brings that OG flow back into it with the new sound, but still using elements of from the Posse on Broadway track. I love his reference where his alias of he's the J.R. Ewing of Seattle, and I'm like, man, you got to be old to know that.
Right.
I'm old.
Yeah.
I know who J.R. Ewing is. Such a cool track, man. He's just having fun here. It's just a cool twist on a classic track, and yeah, one of my favorites, man. Number 5.
No, I agree. When you hear that first line, me and Kids Station home away from home. The first time I heard that, I was like, oh, I got all pumped for it. Number 5, Ben.
5 going to Mac Daddy with Testarossa. One thing I got to give Mix is I feel he was the dude who was like really with the Lambos and shit like at first like
Right.
really kind of just showing off his cars, and then just the way he did this with like he's flowing his dick off, and the scratching on this is fucking phenomenal. Just like he's rapping like he's inside the engine almost, like
Right.
listen to my air intake, like it just I don't know, I never heard anything like that at the time. That song always stuck out to me on Mac Daddy.
And I'm glad you brought up the scratching. His DJ Punish might be the most underrated DJ of all time because he never
Agreed.
gets brought up, and you're hard pressed to find anyone better than him. I mean,
Yep.
just amazing. And it sucks that his name is kind of forgotten to hip hop history. And even then, he wasn't brought up as one of the main, top DJs, but man, he just killed it on the 1 and 2s. Number 4, I am going back to 92's Mac Daddy. And I'm going with the song The Jack Back. What a damn song featuring Wicked One, who was a pretty underground horrorcore type rapper at the time and really never made it, but he was from the West Coast. And I had heard him here and there on little things, but I remember being surprised he was on something like a Mix-a-Lot record. Love this song. Great lyrics, taking revenge on, white supremacy groups like Skinheads and KKK. And, both the Mix's verses are great. I love it when he says, I'll show you what I learned from the gangs. And, but I think the highlight is Wicked One's verses. You just feel. It's almost reminded me like a Bushwick Bill type versus just the vibe and the lyrics. And I love hit him with the crowbar, die in the left ear, out the right eye. That still makes me smile. It has since '92. Just damn, kind of like with New God, we never really got this Mix-a-Lot ever again before or after. And he's talking about real serious things. He's taking you deep down. And it's interesting. He had these two on that record, and then we never really went there ever again. But I love the Jack Back. Damn. I would love Mix to re-explore that one day. So that is my number 4. Raven, what is yours?
For I went to Seminar from '89 with the song National Anthem.
Yes.
I always thought that was just a really hard fucking song, and it was, any of them real ass tracks I always love, and Mix did a really good job on that song.
That was an honorable mention. Number 4 for you, Diz.
Number 4, Swaz, 1988. Around that time, this was a standout track. I think it's a pretty fun, iconic track. I think a lot of people. It doesn't really get that much press, or I don't know if it gets the credit it needs necessarily. But like I've heard Snoop, Busta, and the Pussycat Dolls steal from Swaz, which threw me off at first when I heard the Pussycat Dolls. I hardly even know that
That I
group,
didn't know. Yeah.
but I've heard their song, Don't You Wish Your Boyfriend Was
Oh,
Hot
hot
Like
like
Me?
right.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
They ganked that off of Sir Mix-a-Lot. There's nothing, he made that up. It blows my mind. But I love the song, man. It's one of my favorites. Like the last 4, it could have all easily been number 1 to me, probably, but this one for sure is one of my favorite Sir Mix-a-Lot tracks. I just love the sound of it. It seems so 1988. When I think of 1988, I'm thinking Slick Rick, I'm thinking Sir Mix-a-Lot. Love it.
Yeah, I love that first record. Number 4 for you, Ben.
4. I'm sticking with Mac Daddy. Lockjaw. Just another great example of Sir Mix-a-Lot's flow and scratching and solid ass song.
Right. He was giving MC's lockjaw.
That's right.
That whole Mac Daddy album was just so good. I mean, there's really not a song I don't like on there. And if we were ranking this album, I mean, Baby Got Back would be like the bottom 3, maybe. I don't know. Such an amazing record, not just for Mix, but for West Coast hip hop or just hip hop in general. I just hate that it's always going to be, oh, the Baby Got Back album. That was why all these suburban kids had this record and know what the album cover is. But there's so much more on that album.
Oh yeah.
So much more. Which brings us to the top 3. Here we are. And we're going to go back to that first record, Swaz. And I'm going with the song Posse on Broadway. This was the first time I heard Sir Mix-a-Lot, and I remember it clearly. I had an older cousin who put me on to hip hop in like '85 with Run DMC, but he was older than me, so he was like in high school and I was in like late junior high. So he had more access to like buying stuff. So he would always have the new records. And he's like, there's this new rapper I found, and he has got this song where it sounds like Boys in the Hood or Ice-T 6 in the Morning. That is cool you said that. He's like, you'll love it. You'll love it. It's just like one of those songs. And he played Posse on Broadway. And I was an instant fan. I mean, I went and got this tape. Just such a historically classic hip hop song. If Mix never did another album, this would still be up there with classics, in my opinion. So Posse on Broadway, I mean, what a great tale of just rolling down the street with your crew, all the things they saw and did. And it had a really great video for it too, where they're just posse's going down Broadway. Kind of like, I didn't bring it up, but My Hoopty had a really good video too. That shit was funny. When I was in Seattle, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, I had to find Broadway and I played Posse on Broadway as I drove down Broadway, as I seem to do in every city, do a little hip hop sightseeing. So Posse on Broadway, my number 3, Raven. Is it yours?
It is not, but these top 3 for me, man, they changed places so many times. Just it was literally Like I was 2 minutes after you sent the link getting on because I was finally figuring what the final three was gonna sit. For number three, I went back to Bumpasaurus for Man You Love to Hate. And just because I love that beat and I love the throwback feel and what he was doing with that whole vibe. I love that shit. And if they would have I feel like if they would have showcased that as the main song from Bumpasaurus might have got a little more attention. But I love that song, Man You Love to Hate.
Yeah, I think the main single off of Bulbasaurus was that Jump On It, that remake of Apache from Sugar Hill Gang,
Yeah,
which I didn't mind that song, but no, boy, two people got that on their list. Now I feel bad it's not in my honorable mentions. Number three for you, Diz.
Number three, Mac Daddy, the title track. There's a lot of nostalgia here. The song is so dope, and I know for a fact that it slaps in the system because I was just a kid when I first heard this album. These older kids who had a Honda Accord with rims, they made it a lowrider and had a system in it, they would pick me up because I was go because they would go to my church pretty much. And after that, we're like, let's go cruise. I'm like, oh, okay, I don't know anything,
yeah.
whatever. And I'm just in the back seat, and they put in this Sir Mix-a-Lot, and I was like, oh, Sir Mix-a-Lot, I know Sir Mix-a-Lot, but I didn't know this record, man. And this was just, I remember just hearing this in the back seat. I'm like, boom, like I've never heard bass like this in my life. And this was the jam, man. They would cruise to this for I don't know how long, but that's the only memory I have of cruising in that car is hearing Sir Mix-a-Lot, Mac Daddy, the record. And this song specifically, ooh, man, it brings chills up my spine, man. It takes me way back. I love the song, one of my favorites. Mac and Daddy. And, without the nostalgia factor, it's such a dope beat. And his flow, man, he's got the ego on here. He's just giving it to you. He's the Mac Daddy, It's dope.
All right, we're still on three. Ben, what's your number three?
Three going to Chief Bootnaka, the title track, dirty pimp shit, Mix-a-Lot style. You can picture him like walking down the beach in the mink with a cigar
Right.
in his mouth, just looking for bitches. Dope ass song. I love that album. I remember when that album first came out. Ride was the kickoff single, and I had the cassette single, and then I got the album, and yeah, a lot of people didn't like that album. I feel, but I thought it was awesome.
I think it's a really solid album.
Mhm.
He probably made a mistake with putting him on the glass trying to recreate something that blew up before.
Did you see that Daddy's Home DVD he put out? He was like, he said his buddy who worked at Taco Bell came up to him and was like, dude, what the fuck happened? You used to sing about my hoopty, and now you got chicks running around
Yeah.
on treadmills for a ride. He's like, I work at Taco Bell. I can't relate to what you're doing. And he's like, oh shit, I get it.
Yeah, I think it's a really solid album. I think a lot of people might look at it a little bit less because of Put 'Em on the Glass was kind of laughed at even by hip hop heads. And there's another reason that this slips a little bit lower than I'm going to bring up in a different pick. But there's no doubt it's a great album. So we are at number two. I'm going to 1992's Mac Daddy one last time. And this song was brought up, Testarossa. This song is genius. Seriously, it's genius. With each 5 verses, he does a different gear, and it's stick shift Testarossa. And each verse, he brings it more, like the car going faster. And like I said, with that beat drop after 8 bars in every verse, and then it's just fucking amazing to me. And I always loved this song. But it probably wasn't until I was maybe even an adult I really appreciated all those elements and how amazing he was linking all this, together. And like you said, that scratching by DJ Punish. So it was awesome. You picked Testarossa, Ben. I love that song. I think it's genius. So that was my number 2. Raven, what is yours?
My Posse's on Broadway. That song, it's fucking iconic. The beats, the flow. Yeah, I think I don't know if he really was the first one to break out of Seattle or that area with that hip hop shit, but I know Posse on Broadway was a big part of why people started talking about Washington a little bit, you know what I mean? And it holds up today. And I mean, I even liked ICP's cover of it, and I don't really like a lot of ICP's covers, but I thought their shit was pretty dope too. They stuck to that same formula, and I love that beat and that flow.
Yeah, it's no doubt. And I believe Mix-a-Lot was probably the first one I heard out of Seattle. Kid Sensation was around that time too. His first album might have been 89, where Mix-a-Lot's was 88. Ah, I think we're on two, and I think we're on Diz.
All right, number two for me, Posse on Broadway. This
Fuck
is
yeah.
probably the first song. I don't know, it probably is. All I remember is the first time I heard it, it was on one of those dope ass compilation cassettes that had it had MC Ren from the NWA track, but it had that. It had Two Live Crews, whatever. What was the hit back then? Move Something. That's the
Yeah,
one. It had
yeah.
De La Soul on that cassette. That video that they had.
Ah, if it ain't
Oh, what
rough,
is
if it ain't
If
rough.
it ain't rough, that's it.
If it ain't
That was
rough,
on
that's
my
right.
list for them too.
Sorry, it was killing me.
So this cassette had all those hits, man. It had Posse on Broadway too. Like it was gold. And my uncle had bought it for me, and I think it was all censored. You know, I
Mhm.
don't think any of those songs really had a lot of curse words, but it was gold, man. That tape was gold. I heard Posse on Broadway on there, and I loved it, man. I was like, I've never heard a song like this. I love the horn in the back. It's kind of a slow beat. They had a video for it, I believe.
Yep, I
I
did.
just can't remember. I didn't YouTube it or anything, but I remember as a kid like seeing it on TV and everything. This was what Sir Mix-a-Lot was before Baby Got Back. In my head.
Right.
Posse on Broadway. It's like the definition of iconic. It's an iconic song. Probably should be the anthem for Seattle. I love it, man. My number two.
It's a top hip hop song of all time, in my opinion, as well. What is number two for you, Ben?
Number two, I'm going Bucking My Horse from Return of Bumposaurus. And when I just said that, I just realized, and I know I said it earlier, like I thought he was kind of the dude who was talking about the Lambos and shit, but
Hmm.
he has a lot of songs about cars.
Yes, he
My
does.
Hoopty, Testarossa, Bucking My Horse.
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, maybe kind of even Posse on Broadway, like
Yeah.
rolling. Like I don't think you can find a better Mix-a-Lot flow than that song. And then you want to talk about bass in the system like that. I don't know. I didn't really care for that album as a whole, but that song really really stuck out to me.
We talked about it before, but
Yeah.
that flow got more bass in a little bit. Daddy Don't Quit. I mean, I always rap along when it comes on every time. Which brings us to number one. Here we are. I'm going to the year 1992, but I'm not going to Mac Daddy. I'm going to the Trespass soundtrack. And the song is Checks My Bank. And although this song also appears on Chief Bootnaka, it's different. Don't be fooled. The Trespass version is way better. The 94 Chief Bootnaka one, you can tell he re-recorded it. The overdubs are different. He's just talking smack in the hook instead of punish, scratching it up. It's just different. Certain words are different. It's like he made it, he edited it somewhat. But the version on Trespass, it's everything I want in a Mix-a-Lot song. Just that amazing scratching by Punish, amazing flow by Mix-a-Lot, just that beat that brings you in. It's just so damn good. And Trespass is one of my favorite soundtracks ever. And this is probably a top three song from the soundtrack for me personally. I like it that much. Checks My Bank always gets me hype. I wrote this at number one, feeling a little sad it wasn't Posse on Broadway, but I had to be real. But if anyone out there hasn't heard this and is going to check it out, listen to the version off of Trespass. It's very different. I mean, it's the same song, but it's very different than the Chief Bootnaka version. And that was my, not hate, but I remember Chief Bootnaka like, all right, Pimpin' in Me, I had already heard on Seattle the Dark Slide. Checks My Bank, I loved, but it was on Trespass, and this version was weird. And I think I was also kind of shitting on Put 'em on the Glass. So it just kind of always got in my head that Chief Bootnaka was a little less than, but that just might have been, my brain. But Checks My Bank, anytime we can talk about the Trespass soundtrack, I'll do it. Comes up over and over, and it's amazing. So many people don't even know about it. My number one, Checks My Bank. Raven, what's yours?
Probably at least no less than eight or nine times we've brought up
Oh
songs from
yeah,
that soundtrack throughout
yeah.
this. Like it is, it's nearly a perfect soundtrack. It's up there with like Tales from the Hood for me of just top soundtracks.
Yep.
Um, but my number one, it barely beat out Posse on Broadway because that song is just so fucking good. But I went with I Am Your New God. And it's just the storytelling, the flow, the voice, and the way he's doing it. It's perfect from the little intro to the end of the song. That's, like you said, we really never got that again. Maybe two, three times total we ever got that version of Sir Mix-a-Lot. And I love that song.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, he transports you like you're in a crack house with this, addict at their lowest low with the crack literally talking to him, in the song. Yeah, it's sad how many people that became their new god, right? Number one for you, Diz.
My number one track is "Baby Got Back." It's no fault of his that
You're right.
white soccer moms love "Baby Got Back." It blew up. This was a gold mine that he made. Like rappers dream of this type of track. Like you said, this thing keeps giving him checks every year. He hasn't made a record since like 2003 or something.
Yep.
And I have a feeling it's because he just doesn't have to, you know, like he's doing just fine. This is one of the reasons why Baby Got Back just keeps giving. Um, the song itself now, without all the fluff around it, is fucking awesome. I love the record scratching in it. What he says in it, his writing just really brings out his sense of humor, like we've talked about before. The visual, like he's not really known as a great writer, but the guy can paint a picture, man. And he owns his shit. Like he really owns what he writes. And everybody knows this song. And the beat's cool too. So this was the number one track. It just beat out my other three. I don't know. I was like, I like the track, but is it my favorite? But it's just so important. I have to
Yep.
put it as my number one. So that's that, man. Baby Got Back.
We got one left. What is your number one, Ben?
I'm going to the Trespass soundtrack with "I Checks My Bank."
Ah, my man.
Hell yeah, hell yeah.
The scratching and it's awesome and everything, but then he just comes so hard on that song. And you're right, that soundtrack is unfuckable in my opinion. But that song though, like for some reason, I've always wished that a metal band would remake that song. I think it would be dope as a metal remake. I don't know why, but I just picture it in my head.
Speaking of
Disagree.
metal, no, it wasn't on anyone's list, but the song Iron Man.
Iron Man. Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And although people like Run DMC and even Ice-T at that point were sampling rock, he had an actual heavy metal group. He might be the first rapper, unless you count, well, Aerosmith and Run DMC, but you weren't seeing rappers and actual bands making a new thing. Sample,
What
yes.
was it? Iron Church or something was the name of the band?
Iron Church or Metal Church? I think it's
Something like that.
Metal Church, something like that.
Okay.
It's some kind of church, yeah.
I noticed like going into his like revisiting all his stuff is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but with the exception of like Mudhoney on Judgment Night, has he ever done a feature? I've never heard like KRS-One featuring Mix, Spice One featuring Sir Mix-a-Lot. I don't think, besides in his own camp with Kid Sensation. And then I know you brought up the horrorcore dude on Jackback, but like
Nas. I
The
mean, I don't know if it
Yeah,
counts,
that's what
but
I was gonna bring up. The Where Are They
Yeah.
Now West Coast remix, he was on that.
oh,
That's the only thing I can think of. That's a good point. You're right. You didn't
Yeah.
see
did
featuring
they
Sir
just kind of
Mix-a-Lot.
like not include him because like the people you were beefing with, like
Right?
they're up there, so that they
Yeah,
don't.
I don't know. I don't know what it was.
they're not
Like
He's not West Coast.
he's not
Yeah,
West Coast. No, that's interesting. And I never really thought of it, but you're right. Besides that, Where Are They Now, which was not even like an official release, that remix.
who was that? Candyman?
No, that was Nas did Where Are
Oh,
They Now? He did like a West Coast mix with Ice-T, King T, Mix-a-Lot, bunch of West Coast artists. Then he did like an 80s one with all 80s artists. And I think there
okay.
was a 90s one with all, they were just posse tracks. And they weren't on his album or anything. They just were I don't remember how he released them, whether he just dropped them on online free or whatever. But
For some reason, I thought Candyman did something like that too.
Candyman was on one of those. Now that I think about it, he might have been
Okay.
on the '90s one. Candyman, not a name I think about a lot. Right? It'll be a
No,
while
never a big
before
fan.
we get to top 10 Candyman songs.
Hopefully, quite a while. Did he have 10 songs on that album?
Yeah, like I couldn't name 10 off the top of my head. I'll definitely tell you that.
My bad. Well, funny thing about when Raven brought up the ICP version of Posse on Broadway, I love that remake, and I actually they played in lacrosse, and like it was 3 in the morning. I'm at Perkins, and there's Shaggy sitting there like picking up food for everybody. And I kind of like, I was like, hey, what's up, man? I wasn't gonna bother him. The paint was off. I'm like, he's not
Right.
working. I'll leave him alone. My drunk ass wife is like, who's that? I'm like, if you don't know, then it doesn't matter, does it? Or whatever. But anyway,
Mhm.
she's like, she goes up to him and he's like, can you even name what band I'm in or whatever? And then, but anyway, I was like, leave him the fuck alone. He's getting food. Like, but she was like, no, he wants to talk to you. So I went over there and I was like, I brought up that song because it was on what to Take a Bite Out of Rhyme CD,
Yep.
your album. And he's like, yeah, they made us change it. It was originally called My Posse's on Vernon, but
Mhm.
to get on that compilation, they made us change it to the original Posse on Broadway.
So Sir Mix-a-Lot, honorable mentions. If you're here for the first time, if a song didn't get brought up by anybody and I think it needs some love, we just quick shout it out. You talked about Judgment Night before, Freak Mama with Mudhoney. I threw that as honorable mention. That was such an iconic soundtrack too, because you just weren't
Another one
seeing
we
much
talked
of
about a
that.
lot.
Right. What a great soundtrack. Swaz we covered. Seminar, the title track, I really like. It's a great way to start. Plus, that's the first time you hear him say a little in the middle, but you got much back. You know, in Seminar, there's a few songs where you hear elements that ended up on Baby Got Back, and it's kind of cool to listen to that before even he knew what that would turn into. You guys covered everything off of Mac Daddy. Chief Bootnaka, I like the first song, Sleeping with My Funk. And I really always like Don't Call Me Dada, you know. The EPT said no, so don't call me Dada. Off of Bumpasaurus, Aunt Thomasina, I always really liked, and I really liked Ain'tsta. So yeah, honorable mentions, those are mine. What are we missing?
Yeah, I just wanted there's a standout track for me on Daddy's Home, although I dismissed that record pretty early. Well, it's called At the Next Show with Humpty. And I was
Yeah,
like,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Humpty and Mix-a-Lot, man, of course. Of course
It
they
was.
rap together.
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was a good mix. So Sir Mix-a-Lot is in the books. So all right, have a good night, everyone.
Still a B-boy, from the old to the new, still a B-boy. Too bold for the school, still a B-boy. East Coast to the West, B-boys worldwide, we supposed to be blessed. Still a B-boy, from the old to the new, still a B-boy. Too bold for the school, still a B-boy. East Coast to the West, B-boys worldwide,